Hi there. All right, we're going to take a little look at the Venus persona chart. So if you haven't watched a little introduction video where I talk about Mars and Venus, maybe watch that before this one. If not, that's fine. Basically, what we're going to look at with Venus. Venus is our archetype that has to do with how we have learned to behave socially. So Venus, 7th house, Libra, this area of psychic development is one that we develop through interacting with other people. And some of us have a very strong Venus function, and we're able to harmonize with others. We're able to understand where someone else is coming from, even if it's not our own perspective, and we're able to work with other people more comfortably. So, Venus is a unifying archetype. It's a social archetype. And what's really interesting, I just pulled a bunch of celebrities, and there is a pattern for sure. So with these celebrity charts, I found that most of the celebrities I pulled, and these are just the ones I just thought of just now and pulled them up, they are all like 10th, 11th, 12th house sun placement for their Venus persona chart, which makes perfect sense because those houses, they're in the fourth quadrant, have to do with the public. They have to do with people you don't even know, strangers. And if you think of the 10th house as being a house that is tied to recognition, tied to fame, it's just like when the sun is in the 10th house during the day, it's around the time of, 10 to noon or so, it's like you see it. It's lighting up the earth. 11th house, same thing, it's the morning time, and the 12th house too, it's when the sun's rising. So it kind of makes sense that you would have celebrities with these placements. What's interesting is the celebrities that I found that had the 12th house placement. I have 12th house placement as well because I looked at mine. I'm like, where's mine at? It's also in the 12th. Are a bit more not reclusive per se, but they're okay with enjoying. They like what they like, and they like that they like what they like. Okay, so all right, let's kind of dive into this. And all of these celebrities or these famous historical people you can find their charts through the Astro Data Bank. Okay, so let's start first with Beyonce. I couldn't help but look her up. So she's got Sun in the 11th, and her Sun is conjunct Jupiter. They're at 20 degrees of Libra. So of course, what do we think of when we think of Beyonce? Beauty. We think of beauty. We think of someone who has a beautiful singing voice. Well, she's a beautiful form, a beautiful body, right? She was born into a vessel that is beautiful. But not only that, she knows how to adorn her body. She knows how to dress herself with all of her fanciful costumes, and she enjoys being a woman. She enjoys playing that role. And Sun conjunct Jupiter is, it's kind of, to me, feels like she has this ability in the 11th house to represent the ideal of female beauty. We also have with Beyonce, and the 11th house, a lot of her music, it's like she's a mouthpiece for her, for society, for women, but also for Black women, and for women who maybe in the past have felt like they didn't have an empowered voice. She has been this awesome representative of Black womanhood, and even singing about things that are very personal, and coming from this place of doing it as an artist in a way that's, to help the other women out there in the world that maybe have similar, experiences as her. So it's like she's using her beauty, she's using her skills and her talents that she has developed on behalf of people she doesn't even know, kind of on behalf of humanity. So there's a lot more you can look at with her. She's also got her moon over in Aries in the 5th house, this kind of opposition. And it's an almost exact full moon. It's only 2 degrees off. Moon being the part of her that is going to be strong and independent. And in the 5th house, that's going to be confident enough to, express herself. It's this, Libra can be, if you have someone who has lots of Libra, lots of Venus, and very weak Aries, if their Mars is weak, if their first house is weak, they're people pleasers. They worry too much about what other people think, and they worry too much about asserting themselves. Whereas this combination, it feels to me like it's more of a balanced combination. So, and then also she has Venus right on the ascendant, 5 degrees of Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, conjunct the Sun. So this is definitely someone who is not only, she knows how to behave in a way that's ladylike or feminine or beautiful or even sexy, in a way that she knows how to manipulate and play with the archetype of Venus. She knows how to be Venus, Venusian. But also her body is physically, it's beautiful. She just was gifted with a bounteous beauty, basically. That's how I see this. All right, now let's look at Ryan Gosling. I thought, who's like a male actor that's kind of charming and debonair and that kind of thing, and attractive. And he has also, he's also a Venus in Libra. He has Sun in the 11th also. And his Sun is also conjunct Jupiter on one side and Saturn on the other, which, they both share this. So, and he also has Venus in the first house. Pretty cool. These persona charts are cool. Like, I just pulled people. These are just the first people I pulled up, first people I thought of. And I was like, wow, there's some really neat sort of patterns that unfold. He has also he's got Chiron over there in the 7th. It's retrograde though. So that makes me wonder if he likes relationships with people where there's kind of like, where you can help the person, you sort of help improve another person or help lift their spirits or something, I don't know. It's possible. But obviously he uses his attractiveness, his charm for, it's what he does for, it's what he's known for. Think of your 11th house as like total and complete strangers when they think of you, and they think of you as a Venusian individual. Is this person an attractive person or not so attractive? Obviously the 11th house would suggest that a lot of people would see him as an ideal, or they would see him as a person they could project their fantasies of what the charming, attractive male would be like. Okay. And he's also got Uranus in his first house. It's Uranus conjunct Venus, which makes him kind of like have this, he's got a little bachelor. This sort of, he's a little unattainable. Is how that feels to me. Okay, so let's look at Phil Mcgraw. So Dr. Phil. I love Dr. Phil. Now, obviously, he's a therapist, counselor. It's his job. He's a marriage therapist. So that's Venus. That's 7th house. How do you learn particular skills to bring more harmony and more connection and closeness in your life? Through trying to understand the other person and what they need to feel seen and to feel loved and to feel like you care about them and you're making their world a more beautiful place to live in. That's Venus's job. So he has his Sun in the 10th, right? It's the house of the father. It's also right up in the heavens. So he's known for his Venusian, his ability to work with people. It's in Leo and it's conjunct Pluto. So it also has this quality of feeling like he has a power and maybe even a magnetism to his ability to interact with people. Pluto's also connected to psychology. So he is a therapist, Pluto. He can uncover stuff from other people. I think of this as well with, it's a Sun in Leo, his Venus is in Leo. So pride can come with this Venus placement. So, he needs to feel like he's important. He's going to need to feel like with his wife, he needs to feel as though he's the man, which I think his wife is really good at helping support him. And she's very much like his biggest fan, which I think is lovely. And he's Libra rising. So the way he does things, the way he has learned, he's like learned how to behave in a way that's more socially appropriate. The ruler being Venus, which is in Virgo in his 11th house. So again, he uses his skills that he's learned, Virgo, Mercury conjunct Venus in Virgo in the 11th. And it's like the wounded healer. The skills he has learned in his own life and also from going to school and from working with people. And he now teaches other people skills they can use to repair their social relationships, their functions with people, how they interact with people. And that's Virgo, right? Isn't that great? I mean, it's like, it kind of amazes me actually. And you can go through these charts, like if you're looking at yours, if you're looking at your partner's, and you just want to know, what does my partner need to feel valued, to feel, how is my partner going to try and love me? How's my partner going to try and create harmony or pleasure in our world or beauty? Look at their Venus chart. Okay, so Dr. Phil, 10th house, he needs to feel like he's respected. He needs to feel like what he is saying and what he is doing with his life is important. And ignoring him, if his wife was really independent and didn't give him the limelight, he would probably like that would be something that would be very difficult for his marriage to sort of sustain and maintain. So, okay, let's talk about a designer. So I love Givenchy. So this is Givenchy's chart. Now, he's the first one I had pulled up. He's got a sun in the third. When you think of Givenchy, at least when I think of Givenchy, I have no idea. No idea what he looks like. When I think of Tom Ford, I can see him, like he's a celebrity. Now, I tried to find Tom Ford's chart, but we don't have birth time. I couldn't find birth time, so we didn't get to. I'm very curious to see where his sun would fall. I think he's going to be more, up in the top of the chart somewhere. But with Givenchy, he would use celebrities, and his sun it's in Pisces, so his Venus is in Pisces, in the third house, conjunct Mercury. And so to me, when it makes me think of, he's able to, and Pisces is very much tied to entertainment and celebrity, 12th house as well, because it has this quality of, this is a person that we can project onto, or like literally they're projected onto the screen, like that's also Piscean. It's like it's a dream, watching a movie, it's a fantasy, it's a collective hallucination that we, enjoy together. So when you think of Givenchy, you think of fashion design, it's very much about creating a dream world. And third house does have to do with, of course, your mind and the way that you think about, in this case, fashion. But he had a lot of celebrity friends. Like I think Audrey Hepburn was a good friend of his. And so he would dress them, and they would be the ones that would go out sort of promoting his dream or his vision. As kind of like they were, what's the word? I mean, they were sort of muses, different celebrities he's worked with, but he's known, like his name. You think of his name, you don't think of him, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's go on. You can dive into his more if you'd like. I'm going to go on to the next person. So if you're familiar with Versailles in France, and if you're familiar with the kings and queens of France, and especially during the 18th century. I'm sure you've probably heard of Marie Antoinette. But during Marie Antoinette's time, her father-in-law, who's the king, he had a mistress, and that was common. The kings usually had a mistress, and the mistress was known as the mistress in titre, I think. It's like titled mistress or official mistress, and it was like she held a position that had with it certain, she was given certain favors, she was given certain privileges, I guess you could say, and she was known as the king's mistress, because it was like marriages were arranged, basically. You were super lucky if you were happy with the person you were married to. Like Marie Antoinette and her husband, not a happy marriage. Okay, so with Madame du Barry, we have her sun in Libra. It's like at 11 of Libra too, so it's very close to the middle of Libra. That is the sign of Venus, just like Beyonce. It's in the 10th house. So she was absolutely known for being the mistress, for being the consort, the love interest, basically. Not the consort, that's more like the queen's job, but okay. So sun for her, sun in Libra, ruled by Venus, which is in the 12th. And Venus is conjunct Pluto. So, anybody who's studied, Venus in the 12th and a birth chart, you many times have a person who is involved sometimes in affairs, or there's something about their ability. They know how to play the role of Venus and to put on her robes and pretend to be her. And in Scorpio, there's also intrigue. And if you look at her Mercury, I think was it her Mercury chart? I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. It might be Mars. Don't quote me. But I think her Mercury chart, her sun's in the 8th. And when I think of Madame du Barry, I think of someone who's definitely strategic. She knows how to manipulate people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. She just knows how to affect other people's behavior to get what she wants. She knows how to use other people's resources, i.e. the king's, how to get his ear. She was his counsel. And as you can see, she's got Jupiter, right, next to the MC. So it's like she was the king's counsel. The things, her opinions and the things that she saw in the court and that she observed, he listened to her until I think she kind of got a little too old, and then he had others. But anyway, so And she also, oh, by the way, she's also got Moon in the 5th, which is also kind of like Beyonce, right? This female energy, this female archetype, but it's in the sign of Taurus for Dubarry. Very much she liked her security. She liked to feel in control. And she probably was quite, I think she was very charming, but she was also really stubborn. And she knew how to get revenge if she needed to, basically. She knew how to play the game. And that's Venus, okay? Especially in the 10th house. That's really like knowing how to play the game. Like Dr. Phil, he knows how to play the game, okay? Now let's look at another one who's also 10th house, but this is Audrey Hepburn. And with Audrey Hepburn, you've got, her sun is in Aries in the 10th. And I mean, I don't think of Audrey Hepburn as someone who's, she's obviously was famous and known for being beautiful. But also at the 10th house comes poise. So you can see this with Dr. Phil, right? You can see this with Madame du Barry. The poise, the recognizing the way that you dress yourself, the way that you behave and act, other people will see. And so, you know, you may be more conscientious about being attractive in more conventional ways, I suppose. Now, she also has an opposition to the moon, also a full moon, just like Beyonce. Madame du Barry was very close. It was, you know, like it was just, where was she? She was just right, barely after the full moon. So that's an interesting little pattern to note as well. I mean, obviously, this is just a few charts, but play around with it. So with Audrey Hepburn, we have Sun in Aries, Moon in Libra. So that's also interesting to me because we've been seeing, like, Beyonce has Libra, Aries, Libra. Like, this is Mars and Venus. These are the classic, these are the archetypes, not the classic, these are archetypes of male and female. And these are the things we talk about when we talk about love and romance. So interesting that our celebrities also are reflecting by just inherently being the archetype through their chart. It's like they're also the ones that we project our archetype, our visions kind of on, right? And she's got, let's see, so with Audrey Hepburn, she's got Leo rising, so that's ruled by the sun up in the 10th. She would have been, I imagine, someone who, I think she was a ballet dancer before she became an actress, if I remember correctly. So, you know, Mars does have to do, and Aries has to do with your body, with your physical body, being able to use it in a way that's beautiful. So you could think of her as an individual who was poised, was in control of her body, maybe just naturally. She might have been more competitive than her persona kind of makes you feel that she was. She's probably a very hard worker as well. I feel like 10th house people, if it's Venus, you're going to use your ability to socially connect with people. Like she was friends with Givenchy and he would dress her, right? I mean, I can't imagine anybody better to dress you, to step out and be seen in than Givenchy. And so she knew how to play the role. She knew how to show up and be seen. Okay. But she probably also worried a lot about, you know, her attractiveness as she aged and that kind of thing. Okay, next we have, here's a 12th house. I'm going to take a drink of my rock star. Hold on a second. Okay, let's talk about Michelangelo. So Michelangelo, we have sun in the 12th, sun in Taurus. And the sun is conjunct the moon, so it's like a new moon, right? When you have a person who's a new moon baby, like in their birth chart, you tend to have a person who's, they're not usually as motivated to move towards understanding other people. Like they're very usually self-motivated rather than doing something because they feel like this other person wants them to do it, you know, a little more independent. Definitely that's going to fit for Michelangelo. He was known for being, the reason I pulled him is because obviously he's an artist, but also he's not known for being particularly like friendly. He was just kind of grumpy, you know. So, and he liked to do things on his own. He was a bit reclusive even. So I'm like, oh, well, I have mine there too. I like to do things by myself. You like to dive into your world of dream or fantasy, the images I imagine that would have played out in his mind with this sun in Taurus and his Venus, of course, in Taurus. People who have Venus in Taurus love the natural world. That's where they find beauty, whether it's music or it's art or it's just sensual hedonistic pleasures. So we have this for him. We also have his Venus in the 11th. It's like retrograde. It's like right on the cusp. This is Porphyry house system. Right on the cusp, and it's actually it's right next to Mars. Mars is in the 12th. So this to me feels a little bit, they're both in Aries. He was competitive, and he was, you had to fight back then for your patron, which was the church basically. And he used some strategies to, to get to have his opportunity to create his art. You have to have somebody's going to pay for all of the materials that it would take to paint the Sistine Chapel, and you need a Sistine Chapel in the first place, right? So having the ability to create really beautiful art kind of sold itself, But do you see how his Venus is conjunct Mars in Aries? He could be a little bit, a little prickly, I guess you could say. And maybe he didn't really care. He's like, do you like my art or do you not like my art? Because his art, Venus, it's like in the 11th house. It's the thing that the public admired about him. So he's like, I'm the best artist. Do you want the best artist who's grumpy and cantankerous but will create something beautiful and magical, or do you want this other guy? So could also even maybe perhaps Venus in the 11th could tie into being a person who has abilities or an ability to create, whether it's music or dancing or art, maybe the ability to create something that's beautiful. And with it in Aries, it ties into, just like Audrey Hepburn, it ties into his ability to use his physical body in a way, instinctively, to create art, to create beauty, to know sort of when you're creating a line, like what looks aesthetically right, what looks pleasing to the human eye. That's Venusian. It's understanding how another person might perceive something that you're perceiving. So yeah, Venus is interesting. He's got Neptune over in the 7th too. So in Scorpio, Taurus rising may not have been the most, just feels a little bit like a stubborn individual. This is how I am. If you like it, great. If you don't, sorry. The ruler, I use Ceres as the ruler of Taurus, is down in the 4th at 0 degrees of Virgo. So that to me feels like he was very much, this is what I like. And Scorpio over on his descendant with Neptune right there might even indicate his ability to partner with the church. Like Neptune can represent, to a certain extent, can represent the spiritual world and then the collective dream, the collective revelation, let's say. And Scorpio with Pluto can tie into, Pluto's in his 5th, can tie into resources that we hold together. Money, power, and he's got Pluto in his 5th. So, okay, now let's look at Brad Pitt, because here's another 12th house person, and he's also a new moon, like Michelangelo. So he has his Venus in Capricorn. And in the United States, there are a ton of actors. If you just pull a bunch of famous leading men that are sort of sex symbols or, leading men. Capricorn, Capricorn, Capricorn. At least for American actors, it's really, really common. Because that's the 10th house. That's the father. It's the man, Capricorn. It has to do with the stoic image we have of sort of the great father. So he has his Venus in Capricorn. He knows how to play the part. He knows how to pretend, I suppose, to be this, how to do Capricorn, how to be the leading man. And he's got Aquarius rising. Let's just kind of bounce around this a little bit. See, Aquarius rising. So Uranus is the ruler. It's in his 7th house. That's Venus's natural house. So we're seeing this kind of Aquarius, Libra, or Uranus, Venus thing, because Ryan Gosling also had Venus conjunct Uranus in the 1st house. So Brad Pitt has Saturn and Venus in the 1st house. So Saturn, Capricorn, the father, conjunct Venus, both of them in Aquarius, representing, so being the man who can represent sort of the ideal masculine, and he can also sort of what's an attractive male individual, right? Okay, I'm going to actually pause right here just so that I'm going to break this up into 2 little parts. So, okay, I'll be right back.